incoming is the biggest mistake that I do not stop seeing lately, and that is... Hello everybody, it's Jade Melody here and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going over the always talked about, ever googled, constantly scrolled through TikTok query of how is the best way to grow my glutes. So in today's video I'm going to save you so much time and I'm going to elevate your gains exponentially. So we're going to go over the big three movements which you hear quite a lot recently in terms of glute growth, but are you actually doing them to get glute growth? So starting off strong, we have everyone's favourite exercise, the old Bulgarian split squat. The exercise sent from hell for us. It can be a great exercise though, once you get it right. So what things are you doing wrong? First and foremost, the setup. There was a bit of a rumour and a myth that the further away you had your leg, the more this was going to hit your glutes. What that led to is people doing split squats when they were literally on the other side of the continent and then getting no depth or range of motion because they are so far away and the back leg is completely straight. Essentially just trying to do some kind of split. First mistake you need to remember is the back foot. We shouldn't have your entire leg on the bench at the back. Again, this isn't going to allow you to get any range of motion because I can't go any lower because I'm shoving my shin into the bench. So you need to make sure that with your back foot, it is just half of your foot. Now incoming is the biggest mistake that I do not stop seeing lately, and that is where your weight is being placed. You can see that if I send my hips right back, all I get is this really closed off position. And what does this remind you of? A single leg extension, which then, because there's no weight in this leg and there's all the weight in this leg, I am now just pushing through my back leg to get back up with a tiny bit of help from my front leg. So how do we fix this? We want to keep our weight in the front leg throughout your split squat. Yes, a little lean forwards is perfect, but then keep it there and keep all that weight in your front leg. You should really have like 80% of the weight forwards and maybe just a 20% in that back leg just to support you, but really primarily everything stays in the front. Bend both your knees to come down, and all you need to do to make sure that you keep that hinge position, that knee should stay either over your heel or it can drift halfway across your foot. So as you're going down, just watch where your knee is going. If it starts drifting too much forward, then you know you just need to pull that knee back slightly and keep bending it. So then, drive back into the sky. And my final big tip on this one is about depth. Make sure that you're getting depth from actually bending your knees and not just from leaning your back forwards and up. We're not trying to use our lower back and our spine to lift us up and down. Never add weight or go heavier unless you can reach the depth of your back knee very close to the floor. It doesn't need to touch, otherwise you'll probably end up resting down here and never coming back up because you'll just think, bugging this exercise. So keep that knee just slightly off the floor, drive back up. Finally, just a little side tip, if you're holding a weight, if you want to get maximal glute usage, then always hold the weight in the opposite hand to the leg that's in front. Exercise number 2, the cable kickback. Now this is popular. First and foremost, there are so many different positions you can do cable kickbacks from, and they still do exactly what you want them to. You can do an abduction variation where you're standing from the side. You can do slightly angled positions with your legs behind or your legs in front. You can do directly facing the front and kicking back, or directly facing the front, kicking to the side. So many of these are correct, and it's going to be a mixture of what muscle in your glutes you're trying to target and also what feels most comfortable and best for you. So the number one thing that I see people do incorrectly with any type of kickback movement is they aren't actually kicking back. For example, if I was going into this side-on movement, they would be kicking forwards and in front of them. Kicking forwards and to the front, the glute is not really doing any of that movement, to be honest. However, if you're kicking something behind you and backwards, that's when the glute is going to be working. Again, this goes for whichever direction that you pick. If you're doing a side-on variation, no matter in which way you're choosing to do it, that leg needs to stay behind your torso. The second most common thing that I see people do incorrectly here is with the leg that's not doing any work. The leg that's not doing any work needs to stay still. So you need to get as much stability as you can with your upper body to make sure that this hip stays directly over this heel. If when I'm doing my kick, this hip is moving away and back in, away and back in, I'm not actually using this glute to do the movement. I'm just using this glute to move in and out. When I start the movement, this hip needs to be directly over this heel, and it must stay like that the entire time. Finally, range of motion. We know that we need to be getting the right range of motion in movements, and we need to get a stretch in this glute. So you need to make sure that you have enough distance between you and the cable, again, stability, that you can stretch this leg as much as possible. Again, that matters the same if you're standing side on, stretch the leg over, or you're standing front on, stretch it in front of you. It needs to come all the way as far as it can, so there is some stretch happening in the glute. If you stop your reps here, you're not getting any stretch in that glute. We need to bring the leg in front of the other foot. Same if you're standing in a diagonal, that foot needs to come across that foot on the floor. When I'm pushing out to the side then, I've got loads of range of motion there. So I don't need to try and get the range of motion at the top of the rep. We're not in karate here, we're not in kickboxing. The leg doesn't need to hit your head. You can just push it 45 degrees away from this leg, that's it. And finally, the last favourite exercise of them all, it is the step up. This has been shown to be an unbelievable glute builder, and therefore it got very popular very quickly. But guess what? There's a lot of things that we're doing wrong with them, so don't worry, I'm here to help you out. A lot of things actually from the split squat can come over into the step up. Thinking about where the knee is going, keeping it over your heel / your midfoot, that stuff will count, and where you hold the dumbbell, that stuff will count too. But there's a couple of things which are step up specific that I'm going to go over right now. Also, all of these notes are appropriate whether you're doing your step up on a Smith machine, a dumbbell, with a cable, whatever you choose. All of these things are pretty much still relevant. So this is the number one thing that really keeps coming up with the step up. So again, we've talked about we want to be hinging, and that's going to get us the maximum glute stretch, and we need to make sure that we're pushing the hips back. Exactly the same that came up when we talked about the split squat. This time we've got no back leg, so how can that go wrong? I'll tell you. When we are at the top of your movement, what people are doing here is they are pushing their hips back, which is great, but they're forgetting that this movement does have a knee bend. So instead of allowing that knee to bend, we just end up getting hip back, hip back, hip back, hip back, hip back, hip back. Okay, now stand up. It's hip, 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 hip. Literally no knee bend to stand up. This movement, I'm not saying it won't hit your glutes, there will be glute movement, especially if you're sending your chest down. Because you know what you actually end up doing here? You're doing a single leg Romanian deadlift. So at this point, there is no point in you having your leg on a bench. You're just doing a single leg Romanian deadlift. If you want to do a step up though, you have to be bending this front leg. There was also a lot of fear about, oh, but I don't want to put my back leg on the floor because what if I end up jumping up on it? Which is true. We don't want to jump off of that back leg because then the front leg isn't doing anything. So we do want to make sure that a lot of our weight is forward, just like in the split squat. However, it's okay for the back leg to head towards the floor. You've got multiple options. As you're sending your hips back, make sure to be bending this knee, and you can either just take it so you're almost touching the floor but you don't before pressing back up, or you can have it so that you do go all the way down and lightly press on the floor. Even if you fully put your back foot down, it's fine as long as your weight is still forwards. If you don't ego lift and you don't lift too heavy, you'll be able to still do that and not jump off your back leg, just by making sure that your weight stays forwards. The only reason you'd be able to jump off your back leg is if your weight goes into your back leg. So just keep the weight forward in the front leg and that won't happen. But you can still do it as well, keeping your back leg off the floor if you'd like. But just make sure you actually get that range of motion. Again, there is no point in using the bench and stepping up and stepping down if you're not going to step up or step down. And last but not least is stability. If you're doing this movement for optimal glute growth, you need to be stable. And that either means holding on to something or using a Smith machine that gives you the stability. So be sure that when you're doing this movement, you have somewhere to really grip onto. We don't want to use that arm to pull us up, so I would just use it as a little hook. Get a little Lego hand and hook your hand round and glue it there. It's going to then just stay there whilst we're doing the movement, and it's not really going to help us pull in or out. So make sure you're not bending and extending that arm, because if you are bending and extending, that means you're using the arm. Just leave it relatively straight whilst you do the entire movement. It's going to give you stability, but not actually give you the movement to help out.
Please ignore the complete change in location and look at this clip. The other one became corrupt, so I'm refilming on a completely different day. Anyways, we also talk about in step-ups a lot about not jumping off of this back leg, which is absolutely true. I just want to go into a tiny bit more depth about how to make sure that you don't do that, but you still make it an effective step-up. As I'm noting in this about not making it an RDL, a lot of that comes from people being scared to put this back leg on the floor because they know they're not meant to jump off of it, right? So they start making this a deadlift moment, they don't put this on the floor. Again, that takes it away from being a step up, however. So there's two things you can do to actually make this an effective step up and still not jump off your back leg. You have two options. One option is when you're going down, lock out this leg, point your toes to the floor, and as you're coming down, just tippity tap the toes before you come back up. Not placing the foot, not putting the toes all the way down, otherwise that's when people make it a jump. Just literally straight leg, tippy toes, tippy toe, touch, boom. Now that is one way to do it. Now my only things about that is that people do tend to end up putting too much on there and then it becomes a jump. And also you do have to keep a load of tension in this front leg because you're not really getting a stopping point at the bottom, and although the top is kind of a rest, it's also not really, so you end up having no real stopping point, no real time to properly brace and breathe, because when you're at the top you're still holding the weight and balancing and trying to stabilize, and when you're at the bottom you're just tapping your toes. Second option is to place the back leg fully on the floor. As you're going down, 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 we're going to fully come to this position, completely flat foot of this back leg and completely straight leg of the back leg too. As long as you leave this leg completely straight, completely locked, you will not be able to jump off it. You will have to push through this front leg, making sure you don't yank yourself with the arm, just use the arm for support and push through the front leg. You will not be able to jump off the back leg as long as you leave it completely locked and straight. You'll have to use the front one. Now, if you don't believe me, let's think about the laws of physics. Can you jump with straight leg? If you think you can, get up right now and give it a go. You will look as stupid as I just did right then. You cannot jump off of completely locked straight legs and flat feet. Literally, you become that clip from the In-Betweeners. If you know, you know. You can't do it. So you know that if you do a step up, you completely lock the back leg, you place it on the floor, you know you aren't going to be able to jump off it. It's just impossible. So place it fully down. That's one rep done. You can breathe. Ooh, you can have a moment, you can brace your core, and then as long as, I repeat, as long as you keep it locked out straight and don't bend to push up, just think about locking that knee, holding that leg straight like a pencil, then you will have to use your front leg to push up. My last note that I didn't get to on the corrupted file is, what am I talking about? The last thing to note there as well is hand placement too. You don't want this hand to be too high up, otherwise it's going to be really awkward at the bottom position and you're going to just find yourself reaching. Although at the top it might feel comfortable to have your hand in front of your shoulder, it's not going to feel comfortable when you go down to the bottom. That's also going to stop you being able to place your leg fully down. It's also going to stop you being able to get that range of motion because that arm is just way too high. So be sure to place the arm for when you're at the bottom of the rep, in line with your shoulder when you're at the bottom of your rep. At the top of the rep, it might feel kind of awkward then, like it's really low down, but at the top you don't really need it. You only need it when you start going back down, and then it'll be an absolute perfect height. So don't readjust it when you get to the top back up here, otherwise again you're going to have the dangle mission down here. Keep it low, take yourself down, that'll allow you to get all the way down. Now if you are doing this flat foot position with the lock leg, just be sure that you don't shift all your body weight backwards, but again, if you have your hand in the right position for that, you just know, keep that hand there, and that if you start coming away with your hand, you've probably put the weight into the back leg. If you are putting this back leg fully down the floor, just make sure that the weight still stays in your front leg and you still have support in your hand.
And that is it, guys. Those are the amazing 3 exercises you can pick to help grow your glutes and the amazing ways to actually do them to make sure that glute growth happens. To summarize, all of these exercises are amazing. You just got to make sure that you're doing them the right way. So implement these changes and let me know how you get on with them. If you did enjoy this video or found it any way helpful, make sure to like, subscribe and leave me a comment of what other exercises you are struggling with, and I'll be sure to cover that in my next one. For now, thank you so much for watching and happy glute growth. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.